Andy didn't miss much. If there was anything going on anywhere in Ochwinnay, these two doves were the first to know. During their working lives, they had been home builders, parents, feeders, bringers of peace, messengers of love, and natural healers. Now retired from their usual duties, they had taken up a new morning routine. This began with a visit to the canteen on the top floor of the apartment block. They would breakfast on sunflower seeds, a bit messily it has to be said, and Andy would tuck some away for later. Next, the pair flew to the other side of the building and down to one of the lower flats. They would settle themselves on the balcony railings in front of the big French doors and nosily peer inside, watching the comings and goings as if on a giant movie screen. It was like daily installments of a reality TV show, and they didn't want to miss a single episode. Inside, there was a boy and a woman, probably mother and son, a plinkety-plonk piano, and a scruffy, woofy dog. The woman was cheery and dainty, while the boy was quieter, often lost in a book or a jigsaw. The scene was good-natured and busy, and the dog got lots of cuddles and pampering. Sometimes the boy, the woman, and the dog stood by the glass doors and watched Martha and Andy sitting on the railings, watching them. Then Martha and Andy would fly off from their perch, leaving the balcony scattered with seeds from Andy's canteen stash. When it rained, and it rained a lot in Ochwinnay, Martha and Andy still appeared on the railings, their soft grey feathers totally drooked. They must have looked a sorry sight. The boy and the woman laughed, and even the scruffy dog joined in barking. One day, Martha noticed that the boy had disappeared. At first, she wasn't too worried. Andy would often fly on solo me-time trip, but he was usually back by her side within a few hours. But behind the French doors, hours turned into days, and days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of the boy. Martha watched uneasily as the once lively woman became listless and tearful. Andy paced along the railings, also clearly concerned. Even the dog was moping and off his food. Over a month passed before the boy reappeared. A bed, or a nest to Martha and Andy, had been set up for him beside the French doors. He looked different. He was very thin and pale, and he hobbled when he left his bed. Despite his body being so gaunt, his legs were puffed up and swollen. The woman brought him food, but he barely touched it. She read to him, but he seemed barely to hear. He gazed out at the doves, but his eyes were hollow and unseeing. Every day, his mother gently rubbed cream into his misshapen legs. Martha and Andy tried their best to cheer the boy up and laid on some entertainment. They did a little dance along the railings and made a show of ruffling their feathers. They preened each other's plumage and shook themselves comically when it was wet. The woman came to the doors and pointed. The boy looked across and smiled weakly. As the days passed, the two doves watched over the boy anxiously. Then, one morning, Martha nudged Andy with her wing as the boy sat up and stretched. He ate from the bowl at his side with relish. He pulled back the covers and stood up without wobbling. He smiled at the doves and his eyes had a glimmer of sparkle. Martha and Andy looked at each other in relief. At last, their boy was getting better and gathering strength almost as they watched. They felt their calming, loving presence had helped to heal his pain. Meanwhile, the seeds Andy had dropped on the balcony sprouted shoots and every day grew sturdier and taller. Before too long, cheerful, bright sunflowers were shining through the French doors. The boy smiled, the woman smiled, and the scruffy dog barked at the splendour of colour before them. The bed was put away, and Martha and Andy could resume their contented observation of happy human lives. The two doves puffed out their chests with pride. Maybe they weren't quite retired from active duties after all.